Okay, so what we'll do is, in today's session, as far as I remember, in our previous session we were doing deep layer. So I'll try and wrap up the deep layer. So basically the advanced version of the deep layer, so what we use. So deep layer should be very much clear to everybody because this is very important. So if you have any concerns, you can let me know. So basically, we are concentrating on the five to six. Grammars that we have, deep layer grammars. Okay, of those we have covered, as far as I see, we have covered select. Okay, we have covered filtered, we have covered filter, we have covered mutate as well. Okay, so we have covered unique, arrange we have covered. So what we are left with, summarize and group by. So this two will look today. So let me just put in the agenda for today: deep layer, summarize and group by. Okay, so today we'll start with visualization with base packages of R. So we'll see what R provides in terms of visualization in its base package. Okay, then we'll start. Then we'll look into some advanced visualization, because R is very with the passage of days, R is becoming very famous for visualization as well. So we'll see what R has for us in terms of visualization. So we'll use ggplot2. Okay, we'll see how ggplot2 is used in visualization. Okay, and ggplot2 is little heavy in terms of package. It is very vast. So we'll see how do we infer the documents that we have of ggplot2. So because ggplot2, if you learn ggplot2 in R, so it is as same as what we learned today in Python. So in future, if you start learning Python, if you start with Python or start doing project in Python, so you will realize it is almost the same. Okay, so you learn once and you use multiple times. This is the stuff. So that's the reason we'll focus in detail, with depth, discussion on ggplot2, and we'll see. Fine. So then we'll start with the whatever packages we are left with in deep layer, and then we'll if time permits, so we'll see some data wrangling, because data wrangling evolves around deep layer. So we'll see how do we do data wrangling in R. Okay, wrangling. Okay, fine, guys. So this is our agenda. Let's start with it. Okay, and see where we go now. So, guys, for the sake of discuss, since we are starting a discussion on this visualization, so it's good to have understanding of data. So let's take one default data set that we have called empty cars. Okay, so it should be there in everybody's system. So let's have a look. This is my data set. This is how it looks like. So we have around, if I want to see it directly, so I have around uh, 11 columns, and around I have around 32 uh, rows, so 32 entries and 11 columns. Fine, this is my data. Now to visualize data, so what plays an important role is data understanding. Okay, so now to understand the data, so basically what I mean is what type of variables it has, what is the data types, which is categorical, which is continuous. So those kind of understanding is important when we step into visualization. Okay, so let's again get quickly into a structure of the data. So I just ran structure empty cars, and this will give me a complete structure. I mean, the variable understanding of the data. So, and then we'll get to know what are the categorical variable we have and what are the numerical variable we have, right? So here what we see is in empty cards. So the structure says it's a data frame, it's fine, and we have all numeric variables. Okay, we have all numeric variables. Now if I take any in numerical, can anyone tell me in numerical variables, so what kind of graphs that you have worked with? So they talk about line graph. So have anybody worked with line graph here?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so line graph, when do we plot? So do we plot with a categorical variable or a continuous variable?
We plot it over years versus some variables.
No, so basically, mm, if I talk about this, let's see this on gear. Okay, so let's take data type. So data can be of, it can be continuous. Okay, continuous. It can be categorical. Okay, let's say categorical. Now, so what distinguishes these two? How do you define continuous variable? And give me some examples. Anybody?
Heights or weights, these are the continuous data, continuous variables.
Height. Okay. Now, what about? Give me a minute. Yeah. So, any example? Any more example of your categorical variable and continuous like continuous variable?
Temperature, sir.
Temperature. So temperature is continuous, you mean, right?
Yes, a
Okay,
continuous temperature.
fine. So this is all. This is all the. This data understanding is coming from your uh, like basic mathematics. Okay, so we'll just discuss like what we need to change in thought process when we start working with the real life data. Okay, so I got few examples like height, weight, and temperature. So what is the example? A few examples of continuous categorical data.
Gender,
Age group,
Gender,
age group,
age. Okay, age
um,
or age group.
age group,
Age group. So what do you mean by age group? So why not age? Why age group?
because age is a number. It's not a category, but age group.
Okay.
Uh, Within a group, we put some people. We can put some people. Um, we
So
categorize the people by the age groups.
okay. So what you mean is like, let's say I have a person of, I have a population whose age is 10, 11, 12, 13, and likewise I have age till, let's say till 20. Okay. So now this is my age, normal age. And then what she's saying is age group is basically what she's trying to do is she want to group it. So let's say from 10 till 13, this is one age group. From 14 till 16, let's say this is a second age group. From 16 till 20, this is a third age group. So you mean this is continuous? You mean this is continuous, but when you group it, this becomes categorical, is it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So if I apply the same logic, so why not? Why cannot I make a weight as a categorical? Because I'll categorize weight into 10, like anybody who is from 50 to 55 in one group, 55 to 60 in one group, and then again this also gets converted to a category, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, and same applies for temperature and height as well.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So, guys, do you have any thought process like how do you define categorical and how do you define continuous in simple, plain English? That's it. So, whatever you have learned in your plus two, that will be sufficient for this discussion. Any idea, any thought process?
So is it kind of like discrete and continuous? Because like gender will take either male or female or others. Suppose these three categories, the
Mm-hmm.
gender can be divided while in height or weight.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there are several. They can be several. It can take any value
Okay.
between some range.
Okay. So yeah. So this is something which I was talking about. So discrete. Okay. You define discrete some very in a anonymous way when you talk about categorical variable. Okay. So now one liner definition of continuous and categorical will be a value, any value, obviously it will be numerical. Okay, any numerical like parameter or a value or a KPI which you are trying to measure, and it can take any value. I mean, like uh, it can range, and you do not have a range of it. So a temperature, it has a lower cap and upper cap. Okay, so weight, height, let's say salary. So what do you call salary? Okay, salary can take any value. You have 10,000 or a 20,000 rupees or a $10,000. So it can take any value. Okay, but when I talk about uh, something like let's say year. Okay, year. So year has its boundaries. So though it's big, it's big in window, but it has its limitation. So something like year, something like let's say age. So age also has its lower cap. A person can be of zero years, very fresh, or a 0 month baby. Okay, or a person who can who let's talk about the person who have stayed a longest number of days on earth, who was alive for the longest number of days, let's say 150 years. So it has its lower cap and upper cap, right? So you can categorize it. So this automatically becomes a categorical variable. This is what I was trying to this reference I was trying to make here. So age will attain some value from its minima side and its maxima side. Okay, so obviously if you have such variable which can attain minimum and maximum, and that can be defined. Okay, so you can obviously group that in a discrete different discrete or a like group, and make it category in the category. But you cannot range, you don't know where the salary will be, in which range. Okay, so this is one example. Now, and other way you can think of is the other definition. Okay, just to remember, because people generally get confused, and this will be very much useful, like which is categorical, which is continuous, when you start putting this variables into algorithms. Because some algorithms like linear regression, which accepts continuous value, continuous variables, right? So you'll have to put in, because you should, like over the time with experience, you'll get to know that which algorithm accepts what input. Okay, continuous input, discrete input. When you're working with linear regression, so you need to check on the continuity of the data. Okay, if you have all the variables continuous or not. If it is not continuous, you'll have to make it continuous somehow. Okay, I mean, like by creating dummy variable, or by putting doing some transformation. So you'll have to do. Now let's you get a lot of type countries in a data, country, address. Okay, these are like categorical variable undoubtedly, but this is not useful. Obviously it will not be used in model, so you just need to remove it. It's not like you'll have to use all the variables in your model. It's a categorical variable. You should not, I mean, like based on your need, you should remove it. Now you'll get a lot of time age, as age will be there. Okay, because if you have financial data, like bank data or e-commerce data, okay, or customer engagement, customer behavior data, so gender will be there, gender, age will be there. Okay, so this are your categorical variable. Okay, so and if you want to predict the sales, so what you are doing, you are trying to regress, you try to run regression, and you have two categorical variable. Okay, so in that case you'll have to convert this into a dummy variable, where you need to create dummy variable and make this category into continuous. Okay, that will be there, this conversion from here and there. So that is why this is important. Now let's come to the example that we were discussing. So we were discussing about uh, other way how we can remember. So let's say uh, if your data has you have a data of customer engagement, and you let's say you have a data where you want to predict customers purchase, or how much customer will spend in next 3 months. Okay, and you have some data which says how much he travels. Okay, so you have a variable called number of travels, number of flights. Okay, so number of flights. Now tell me, what is this? Is it a categorical or a continuous variable? Categorical or continuous? And with justification. So you have something called number of flights the customer has taken. Okay, and then you have amount he spent on cloud taxi, let's say on Uber or Ola. Okay, so guys, tell me what your thought process is about these two data variable. Will it be the first one? Will it be a continuous or
So
categorical?
I think the first one is categorical and the second is continuous.
Okay, so what justification you have for the first one?
Number of flights can be like one flight or two flight, cannot be 1.5 flights taken, while the amount spent has to be in time, while time has to be continuous.
Exactly. So this is what. So anything that cannot be measured in like 1.5 flights, does that at all does not make sense, right? So either it's one or two flights. Okay. So it has this variable looks like a continuous. I mean, like a person can take 1,000 flight, lakhs flight, one flight, two flight, but it is restricted. I mean, like it cannot attain 1.5, 1.2. So it becomes, though initially it will look when you start looking at the data, it will look like it's a continuous, let it be, and put it in the model. But this entirely like ruins your entire effort when the model with the model output. Okay, your model will not be able to understand since you are putting it in a regression, but it's a categorical variable. Okay, so this type of business understanding makes very important. So how do we get this? How do we develop this? There's one very easy way: ask question with each variable. Okay, so once the moment you develop this habit of asking question with each variable. So if I ask cylinder, this is my empty car, and I ask this cylinder variable, like what value it can attain. Okay, so uh, do you think it's a numerical or a categorical variable? What do you think about it? Cylinder means the number of cylinders it has in the car. So obviously
Categorical.
it's a categorical.
Categorical.
Yeah, it cannot have 6.5 cylinders. Okay, generally you will get to, no, like I mean, like 6.2 liters, 6.5 liters. That's the capacity. I'm talking about number of cylinders. Okay, now gear. What do you think about gear? So have you ever heard that a car or a bike having 5.5 gear or 3.2 gear? No, it has only
Mm.
1, 2, 3. It will be numeric. So again, this
Categorical.
becomes categorical. Okay, now where the confusion arises. So the moment you write structure and the dataset name, okay, empty cars, so you run it. So you see all the variables. Obviously it's a numeric variable, and R has some of its limitation. It says numerical variable, right? So it says numerical variable, but if you, the moment you try and see individually, you'll get to know, no, this looks numerical, but it's a categorical. It only attains a discrete value. Okay, so it will be a it's a good input to my logistic regression. And when I'm working with the linear regression, when I'm working with regression, so I'll have to work with the variable, right? So this plays a very important role of understanding continuous and categorical. Now, so after that you have further categories like in categorical variable and numerical variable, like if you can measure it or you cannot measure it. So I'll share an entire document. I have a PPT. So if you just go through it, you'll understand like how do you understand the variable to in order to put that into a model input, right? Whether it be a supervised, unsupervised, any machine learning algorithm, how do you understand the variable? Okay, so this discussion started with the visualization, and this data understanding is also important when you do visualization. So how it is important? So basically when you deal with visualization, so you either plot it in a continuous graph or a discrete graph. So example of continuous graph is your line chart, okay, area under curve, then it will be your bar graph, okay. Now when I talk about discrete or categorical plotting, so you have a very famous example of histogram. Okay, so histogram works with a categorical variable, and a line chart or a bar graph works with a or your normal curve, any curve that you are drawing, that will work with a continuous variable. Fine. So guys, so far are we clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now let's start with basic plots, okay, and then we'll have a detailed discussion on like one important plot that we use in data wrangling, right? So let's start with plotting. So if you want to plot, as I say always, so to start with best, you just try and check what plot, like what documents you have available for plotting in R. And so now what we see is basically base plotting. We are not using any package as such. Okay, so let's take a few examples. I want to plot uh, empty cars. Okay, so in empty cars, so let me pull out one example from here. Good example will be, okay, so let's do this histogram. I'll start with histogram, and let's take any categorical variable. Let's take cylinder. Okay, so what will happen? Empty cars. Okay, so what will happen, as we know in categorical variable, x-axis becomes your value, and y-axis becomes your frequency. Okay, so here as we see, so any plotting that we do in base or in your ggplot2, it will always be visible in your plot section here. Okay, so I'm plotting my gear. So this is what my cylinder is, so this value, and corresponding y-axis will be your frequency. So like gear of four gear car, we have around 11 cars of gear 4, and we have around a gear 6 car of around 6 cars we have of gear 6, and then we have maximum number of cars of gear 8. This is what it says, right? So sorry, it's a cylinder, that's what I was thinking. 8 gear car is impossible. Yeah, so we have a car of cylinder 4, 11 cars of cylinder 4. Okay, and we have cylinder 6 car of number, the number is 6, and we have around 13 cars which is of 8 cylinder car, right? So this is how we visualize. And when we want to visualize it, let's say I want to do it mm, I want to plot, let's say any empty car dollar, what is mpg, let's see. I want to so it will be x comma y. So in x-axis I'm trying to plot your this is all continuous. Okay, so this this plotting will not happen because we need a different variable. So leave this. Okay, so now like other aspect of your plotting, which is box plot. Okay, so yeah, so before we start with box plot, it comes with a base package in R, and we need to understand what box plot is. Okay, so for that I'll just quickly come to, I'll draw. So have you guys heard about box plot?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, so I was talking about 1 minute. Yeah, so this is important, and basically when we start with data wrangling, you will understand why this is important. So we are seeing this here. Let's plot one box plot, and then we'll come to the detail of it. Okay, so I'm trying to plot, I'm in empty cars, I'm trying to plot any variable. Let's say I'll plot mpg only. Okay, and let's plot it. So you get, we don't have any outlier. Let me take some other value, displacement. Okay, so fine, so let's work with this only. So what box plot does is, box plot is also called interquartile plot. Okay, so you'll very frequently hear either box plot or interquartile plot. Okay, so box plot is used for your outlier detection very extensively. So do you guys have worked with outlier detection?
No, sir.
Okay, so we use box plot in outlier detection. We'll come to that now. First, let's understand this plot. So how do we plot it? So it you can do it with the base package, or if you want to do some advanced plotting with colors and all, so you can even use ggplot too, right? So whichever variable. So if you have 100 variables and you want to plot 100, so you just keep on putting comma and you can do it. Okay, so we are doing it for displacement variable, and once you do it, so you get it here. So this y-axis becomes your value, that is displacement, and this plot comes in. So here you have a box and you have two whiskers. Okay, so let's understand this. So in a box plot, so you have minimum, which is also called first quartile. Okay, sorry, this is your first quartile. This is called minimal. Okay, or lower viscous. Then you have first quartile. Then you have the thick black line, which is your median. Okay, and then you have this portion. If you see, you have third quartile as the arrow says, and you have maxima, which is your upper viscous. So your upper viscous and lower viscous plays a very important role. So how does it work is, anything, any value, any data point which is below minimum, okay, and above maximum is treated as outlier. Okay, is it clear? So this value which you see here in a circle and which is marked as an outlier is because the reason it is outlier because it is above maxima. Okay, so now when we, how do we get an idea? So once we, the very basic plot, when we do box plotting and we see any variable, so we get to understand this data is good to go ahead, or does it need treatment. Okay, so the moment we realize that it has outlier, so it needs a treatment. Okay, if you need to replace this value or remove this value, or normalize it, so whatever you want, you can do it based on the requirement of the data, and make it a proper perfect plot like this, then go ahead with it. Okay, otherwise your model will not perform because it will be very sparse. Okay, and to reduce the sparsity of the model, you need to treat the data outlier. Fine. Now, so a difference between first quartile and third quartile. So QR1 minus QR3 will give you interquartile range. So the interquartile range gives you an idea how, like what is the range of the data, how data is distributed. Okay, so if the interquartile range is very high, so that means your data is very much sparse. It is very much it has high range. Okay, the minimum maximum. Okay, so and let's go to one more. Let's do one more box plot and check if we have any. Yeah, so I just took this qsec variable of empty car. Okay, and this qsec variable has an outlier. If you see here, it has an outlier. Guys, 1 minute. When we plot this variable, so we see that we have an outlier. Okay, fine. So this is like more of outlier, and now let's go with ggplot2. Okay, before that, what you can do is uh, okay, so I have a ppt, okay, prepared for you for visualization. So guys, can you see my screen? I'm sharing
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
ppt.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, so let's quickly get into visualization, and this is more of a ggplot2 advanced. That's why I prepared a ppt so that it becomes easy to relate it later on. So guys, we'll start with visualization, but let's understand the role of visualization. So when we started with basics of R, and we were here. Okay, so in this section of getting a data, importing a data, exporting a data, all the data related to work, understanding the variable. Okay, then we went into deep layer. Okay, so deep layer was more about subsetting. Okay, keeping the data that we need and removing the data that we don't need. Okay, that was a part of cleaning. If you see here, the second phase. Fine. Now we are in a phase where we need to understand the data. I mean, like it's a cyclic process, and that's the reason you see a cycle here. We need to understand, as in, like, what type of variable you have, what is the is it a categorical continuous? So now you are looking towards a modeling phase, and you need to prepare the data likewise. So we started with visualization, so that you do box plotting, you do a histogram, you do a line chart, bar chart, whatever. Okay, and then see the data sparsity, data distribution. Okay, and it's a cyclic process. So visualize, model, if it is working well, fine, otherwise transform and again visualize it. Fine. Now moving ahead, we will start with ggplot2. So as I said, ggplot2 is important because you learn it once and you implement everywhere. R, you have in Python, exactly the same code will work in Python. Okay, and just to make you a little cautious, you might, when you Google about ggplot2 and you get code, so the code might look very big and confusing. So there's nothing to worry about, in at least as far as ggplot2 is concerned. ggplot2 is something, if you understand the basics, if you understand the basics of ggplot2, how ggplot2 works, you have entire thing documented, well documented in the ggplot2 portal. So I'm sharing a screen. I'll share the link in the chat. Just keep this link saved with you. It's the very first link that you'll get when you search ggplot2. Yeah, so this is the link. Now, how do you use this website? So this website is maintained by CRAN. It's a ggplot2 website, and CRAN is basically owned by R. So any type of charting that you want to do, okay, go here and just scroll down. So you have a code if you want to do bar plot, okay, whatever you want to do, and you have entire detail data, okay, arguments here. Okay, so once we do three plotting with by ourselves in R, then we'll go back to the website and we will see how to use that. Fine. So for ggplot2, again we'll use the same data, so for better understanding. Okay, and ggplot2, as I said, it's a big package, so you need to install it in the system, and when you install it, make sure you do dependency is equal to true. Okay, because it comes with a lot of dependent packages, so in a go it will be there installed in your system. Fine. So I bring library, and then I start with my plotting. So ggplot2 works with a concept of something which is called layering concept. Okay, so what does layer mean? Layer means, if you see the plot section, now the entire canvas, this is called canvas. Okay, the entire canvas is empty. Okay, it's blank. Okay. And once you want to plot, so it comes, it in a canvas you have layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, layer 4. So like whatever layer, how many layer you want to perform, create based on your requirement, you can keep on adding. So if anybody here who have worked with Photoshop, they will be able to understand, and they will be able to relate it. Okay, in Photoshop and Corel Draw also, you have the same concept of layer, right guys?
Kind of, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move ahead. Now we have type of data, we have seen categorical, gender. Okay, fine. So I've done with my installation, and if you want to see a more versatile form of ggplot2, so get this tidyverse package as well. So it comes with a lot of useful data that you can practice. So the reason I'm telling you this tidyverse, you'll find it here once you refer to the document. So this entire document is implemented in tidyverse data. Okay, so install these packages as well. Okay, now let's go ahead. This is the link which I'll share with you. Now, so we'll start with MPG data. Now let's see how MPG data looks like. So in MPG data, we have manufacturer, model, displacement year, and so on and so forth. So let's see the structure of MPG data. So in MPG data, we have character variable. Okay, we have numerical, and we have integer. Okay, so wherever you see character, by default it becomes categorical variable. Okay, so these are categorical variable. Where you see numerical variable, it is continuous, and then you'll have to put some extra check if it is actually continuous or discrete. So you need to look into that. Fine. Then we see here we have couple of categorical, we have couple of continuous as well. Okay, so let's move ahead with this data and see the columns. So we have manufacturers, which is categorical, model categorical, displacement will be continuous. What is displacement? Yeah, it should be continuous. Year will be categorical, cylinder will be discrete. Okay, continuous but discrete, trans, and so on and so forth. So we have both the combination. We can look into it. Now let's move into the like layering part. So once we start ggplot2, so it's we have a function called ggplot. Okay, in ggplot you mention the data first. So at the moment, so you see the pop-up here. Okay, so you mention the data. So for us it is mpg. We'll put mpg data, and then this is our data. Now we need to define our x-axis and y-axis. Okay, so if you just put tab, so you'll get here, we don't have x and y-axis. So data is, let's say we'll use data is equal to mpg. You can write like this, or you can even write only mpg. That will also work. Okay, so now second thing that we will come to know here is that is called aesthetic. So aesthetic is your defining your canvas. So anything that you do under aesthetic will be displayed here in the plot section. So aesthetic is written by AES, and under aesthetic you define your axis. So here you define x-axis, comma, you define your y-axis. Okay, so let's say my x-axis is I just define aesthetic and I run it. Okay, you see here the moment I just declared the data and aesthetic, so my this canvas change its color from white to gray. So that means I have defined the boundaries. This is my first layer. Okay, now in this first layer I can define like second layer, that will be my x-axis and y-axis. X-axis, let's say I'll take the same example, displacement, and I have defined displacement and like x and y axis. Now we don't see any axis here. It's just a canvas with its first layer. Now moment I define my x and y axis, so it will define your axis here. So here you have your axis defined. So what values it is having? So the graph automatically sees what is the minimum and maximum value of displacement, what is the minimum and maximum value of uh, HWY, and likewise it defines the axis and the like category. You see the boxes, okay, that is defined here. Now, so this is your second layer. You have first layer and the second layer. Now what type of graph you want, and that is again dependent on what type of data it is. So both we see here is displacement. Let's see, displacement H integer and displacement is numeric. So both are your numerical. So let's go ahead and do a third layer. So how do we do a third layer? So now onwards, first and second layer onwards, anything that you want to add, just do plus sign. That is you are adding a new layer, and just write GEOM. Use tab. Okay, and you see you have n number of options available. This many options are not available when we talk about base R package. Okay, so geom means like geometrical plots. So let's say we'll go for we have a thing box. Let's say we go for bar. Okay, geom bar. Okay, and run it. So the moment you run this, so if the date, so what it says is stats count must be equal to y static. So because bar, there is again a mismatch of your categorical or continuous variable. So that's the reason it is not taking a bar graph. So let's try with other. Let's try with line. So for line also you'll get the same error. No, for line it is working fine. So let's take with histogram and see how histogram works. So it says bin number of, okay, so histogram is we have provided both the I mean like both the variables are continuous. Okay, and in histogram one variable should be categorical. So that's the reason it is not running. So let's remove and go with some other graph that will go along with our data. So curve density, frequency, no, line. Let's go for point. Okay, so what it did is it basically mapped my data points like in x and y axis in the data point. So it's basically a scatter plot. Okay, now we'll go into deep of it. So let's go back to our slide and check what we have here. Okay, so prerequisite is your library. You should have tidyverse that we have discussed, and we are going with MPG dataset. So guys, one thing that you must have noticed, or if you have not noticed, we can discuss it because this might create a confusion. When we do str MPG, str empty cars. Yeah. So do you find any difference here? When I did str mpg, so I got classes tbl data frame, a df, tbl df. When I did str empty car, so it says data dot frame. Why so? So basically, uh, in like in R, so you have a data frame that we are well aware of by now, and then you also have one the other type of data frame, which is exactly a data frame only, but there are some objects in R that that does not get uploaded, or that does not exist in R with exact data frame thing. It is called table. Okay, so it you all the operations that you do in data frame, you can do it here as well. Okay, the only extra thing that you get here is few information of the data set. Like, so if I view mpg, if I view mpg, not view, let's say I just run it. Okay, so you get this, a table with 224 rows and 11 columns. Okay, and if you just simply do empty car, okay, before we run that, let's see this. We in data frame as well, we get the column names like this. This is exactly same, but in data frame we don't get this. We don't get the variable definition in the display. Okay, this comes with a table. So when you see a table, that means it's a data frame. If you go and check empty car, which is actually a data frame, so you get this exactly same thing, column name, and then it starts with the value. There's nothing there's no rows that defines the column definition, but here in table you have a column name. Okay, and then you have a row definition, like a column definition, like what it is, character, numeric, and all. Okay, now strangely, there's if you do a class of both, what do you expect? If you do a class of both, class of mpg, which is a table, and class of uh, empty cars, which is a data frame, you get the same output. So they both are data frame. You see here, they both are data frame, right? There's no difference in that. But in when you do mpg, which is data frame but in a table format, you get a notification that it's a tbl, that is table with a extra information of rows and columns. Okay, and surprisingly, when you deal with ggplot2 or visualization, so and if you work with ggplot2 and store the data, so it gets stored in table format. Okay, but nothing to worry about, because both has the same behavior. I just mentioned this, it came to my eyes now, so that I thought rather than later on you'll get confused, so it's good to get it cleared out now. Okay, fine. So guys, any questions in table and data frame?
No, sir.
Okay, fine. Okay, so we were here in the slide. So we have table. That's the reason I got to know about. And then we have installed tidyverse package as well. We have taken this now canvas. So canvas, we saw the first thing that we get after get when we put the data and the aesthetic is a canvas, the gray portion. So this is the gray portion you get. So this is your first layer, and that what you get in the right side, that is when you put aesthetic display and uh, like x and y axis without any type of graph. So I mean, like without any third layer, you get the you get it something like this, which is axis and all. Okay, then geoms. The geoms is like, as I said, it's geometrical thing, and with geom you have this many varieties of plot, whichever goes well with your data, with your data understanding, you can plot it, right? So then you have, how do we use geom? So we use the left side is aesthetic, and then you put the type of graph you want. Okay, so let's go ahead. So let's take some example of only one variable, and let's put something like this, and plot here uh, area. Okay, area will not work, so let's plot a frequency plot. Frequency poly. Let's plot a frequency poly. No, what is my so this is what I'm trying to plot. It's exactly the same, right? Data mpg is x equal to h wy plus g of frequency. Okay, I need to mention here x is equal to no. Okay, we have NaN in my data set. Okay, so let me check. Guys, have you noticed the error that was coming? So that was coming because I just typed tibble here, okay, and colon. So it was that's the reason I was getting an error. Otherwise, it was fine. So I just removed it. Fine. So what I did is I am plotting one variable and I'm doing a frequency plot. So like just check how simple it has become rather than using a base package and writing 10 line of codes. So here I'm just passing my data that I want to plot and the variable in under aesthetic. This is my first and second layer. Okay, and on top of that, what type of plot I want? I want frequency plot. So I did my frequency plotting. Okay, it will give you. And then let's try some other. You need to try a lot in this. So let's see box plot. So you need a grouping function here. This will actually raise an error. So bar should work or histogram should work here. Yeah. So I plotted histogram and it gives me the like my value of HWY and the frequency. Fine. So let's move ahead and see what we have. Okay. Uh, so now we take class, which is actually a categorical variable here in MPG. I'll take a class. This is my class. So ggplot data is equal to MPG AES. Your x is equal to class. What is the value? So into class. Plus geom histogram. Okay, geo bar. Okay, fine. So I have taken a class here in my x-axis and the y is your count. So automatically it groups and give me the output. Fine. Let's move ahead and we will see a couple of examples of geo points. So I have the code here. So here I'm trying to plot my x-axis point we have already seen. Okay, here I'm trying to plot my histogram. So against displacement. Okay, let's see how it looks. Histogram.
Sir,
Yeah.
actually, I have a question.
Yeah, yeah. Tell me.
Which type of graph works for which type of data? How
Hmm.
do we know this?
So this will be basically the discussion that we have categorical and continuous. So that it is totally dependent on that. So histogram will always work with a discrete data, categorical data. Okay, and your bar graph will always work with your when you are trying to plot something which is continuous. Okay. Now scatter plot will be something where you just want to plot something irrespective of categorical or continuous. Okay. And moreover, that will come with practice when you start, because I also when I start working with some plots, so I just do some hit and trial thing, like what you see now, right? So I just did some hit and trial. So similarly,
Okay.
yeah. So guys, if you are working in a system, so I'll in the slide you have a couple of questions that we need to answer. Okay. So before that, let's check this some of the terms. So univariate is basically when you are trying to plot only one variable, x-axis or y-axis, and you will like what we did in here in the bar graph here. We plotted only class. So this is a univariate plot. Okay. When in this case where I'm plotting x and y, that is bivariate. So I'm plotting x and y. Okay. So what about trivariate? Any idea, guys? Can we plot or not?
I don't, I don't know. So I have something to say.
Yeah.
The thing is about histogram and bar.
Mm-hmm.
Histograms are always used to draw continuous variables. That's why histograms don't have any lines in between. While if you draw bar, every bar will have a separated mark. Those are to draw the discrete variables.
Come again. Come again.
Graphs are for discrete variables, while histograms are for continuous. Like the plot that we have in the screen is a histogram, right?
No. This
There
is
is
what we have in this. Yeah, correct. This is a histogram.
there is no separation. That means it's a continuous. If we draw a bar, there will be separation between every
So
value.
let's check this here. If there's some confusion, let's clear it out here itself. Okay. So I have a class and I'm trying to plot a bar. Okay. So first let's check the what the your what class is. Class is your this. I mean, like it's a category, right? So I'm trying to plot category. So this
These
is my
separate values defines that these are all discrete variables.
this is a categorical variable. You mean, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. And when I'm plotting displacement should be continuous. Okay. And I'm plotting histogram. So it it is again separated. So
those
okay,
separate. I think those
those values are
places
not,
don't have. There are zeros. Those values are.
those values are zeros. But if you want to bin, right? So if I want to uh, bin the histogram, so we define it. We define the number of bins the value that the value can be like on which the value can be separated. So we do that in histogram. We cannot do that in bar graph. So let me confirm it if you are saying it. So let me just confirm, because I'm like now I'm a little confused here. But how far I know, histogram is used as of what I can think of now. Histogram is used for categorical.
I think it's the other way.
Okay, so let's check the geobarnal stat count stack with bin width. Yeah. So you see here in histogram, they have an option of bin width, right? So bin width
I don't
and
know
bin.
what the
Okay, but yeah, still if we have something like we can clear it out, we'll clear it out, no worries. Okay, fine. So what we have seen so far is your we have seen point, histogram, bar. We have seen, let's run this. So we have one more layer added here. We had aesthetic, x is equal to displacement. Okay, and then we placed fill. Fill is basically it acts as a legend, and it will give you a stacked bar graph. Stacked bar means like in one bar you will have multiple like categories, and you just need to put fill and DRV. So DRV is a category. So if you go to the data and you see here, DRV is your category F4. Okay, and then you plot a bar graph. Okay, so like I did not get your name. What was your name? Sorry, you asked me.
Rishabh.
Rishabh. So Rishabh, you see here with your logic, that logic is not uh, valid here. Now, bar graph displacement, we know it's a continuous variable, right? And I'm plotting a continuous variable. So you can conclude from here. I mean, you have a continuous variable, and I'm
So
plotting.
actually, graphs can be drawn, like bar and histogram can be drawn, but the thing is, what we have read in our book, the
Mhm.
histograms are always for continuous variable, while bars are for discrete or categorical variable. I have read it in our book actually.
Okay, so let me like this is a pending task on me. I'll just definitely look into it, and I'll get back to you on next session. Fine, Rishabh?
Okay, sir.
Okay, fine. So now any modification in shape, color, form, you can do it here. So if you press aesthetic and put tab, so you're not getting option here, but that we used fill is equal to DRV. Likewise, if you want to change the legend, shape, size, title, you can give here. Let's go to like let's. I want to create one more graph using lines. So this is a simple one. I want to add two layers, right? So I want to show you this. So far we have seen this. We have plot a normal scatter plot or a point graph. Now if I want to regress it, I want to check the trend. So what I'll do is I'll add one more layer, okay, in this. And it, how will I add it? So geom, let's say abline. So what it will give me? It will give me a trend. That is a third layer. Fine. So now let's go back to the slide, and so let's see this the important graph, which is a box plot. So for box plot, we'll use let's say GG plot data is equal to MPG. Plus box plot. Okay, so here we have like on class, okay, and your HYW becomes your y-axis, and your x-axis is your class. So for each class, so whatever class you have, uh, for each class you are plotting a box plot, okay, and you see now from here one simple visualization you'll get to see that in the entire data set uh, how many and which classes is having an outlier, and you can simply replace those with zero, or you can replace those with mean, or whatever the call is. Okay, so this is used for your box plot. Now similarly you have one more so you can add color here. So what we'll do is we'll write fill is equal to uh, let's say let's see, check if class is working. Okay, so what I did is I added one more layer to it. So basically I'm coloring the each box with the class, and you get a legend here. Fine. And there's one more for same outlier treatment. You have one more plot which is called violin plot. Geom v violin plot. Let's check this. How does it work? So now here, instead of an outlier pointed directly in front of you, you have a tail. Okay, so it gives you an outlier, and it also shows you that which side the data is skewed. So you get you also get the skew, you get to know the skewness of the data, like is your data skewed or it is normal, okay, normally distributed, or is it towards skewed towards left, towards left hand or right hand. So from a violin chart you'll get this, right? So there are a lot of varieties. Let's check some more here. If we have violin point, we have seen. Now let's if people who are working on laptop, just try and do this question, one question, and when I'll share the slide, you can uh, do all the questions. So let's start with the last one. Create a scatter plot of city versus displacement. This is very simple. We have done it. So leave this. We have done this a lot. This will be basically this one, nothing else. Okay. So let's take the second example. Create a chart that shows the number of observation for each manufacturer. Guys, who can tell how just a verbal code, how will it work? Create a chart that shows the number of observation for each manufacturer. So manufacturer is what? Manufacturer is this. So it basically wants ggplot data is equal to mpg. In aesthetic, you need to pass class manufacturer. So let's make a manufacturer as your uh, x-axis, and in y-axis what the heck is this here? And in y-axis, what does it want? So it wants the count. Okay, so let's keep it like this way, and simply let's try with geom bar or histogram. Let's see how it works. So it gives you the mm, again the same class. It gives you the class, and it gives you the count of each class frequency. Okay, that was the question. Create a chart that shows the number of observation of each manufacturer. So it gives you the number of observation of each manufacturer, right, guys? So can anybody who is working on the laptop or who is online from the laptop try this? Create a chart that illustrates the distribution of the city-y variable. Illustrate the distribution of city-y variable. So how do you get the distribution? So distribution, you can get it in like various ways. So any one option will work. Guys, any idea? So what it is saying, create a chart that illustrates the distribution of city-y variable. So let's copy this. Let's start with CTY, and here let's see the geom bar. So it gives me CTY and frequency. It wants listed distribution. So you can keep this or try with if line bar will basically give you a good distribution. Let's check if it works. No, it will not. Okay, so like bar graph will give you a definition. It will be an answer to the question. Okay, so Okay, histogram also will work here. Okay, so bar and histogram both are working, and any charts that you plot here, that is exportable, so that you can export. Basically what happens whenever we work with charts and incorporate, so this chart needs to be there on the slides in the presentation, so you can export this chart in your local, in whichever form you want, and save it. Okay, so you can save it in your local system. Fine. Okay, so then we have advanced just the aesthetic changes, shape and size, so you can directly look into it. So there's nothing that we have left out. Okay, facial is one thing. Basically, it gives you. We'll come to facets when we work with the variable understanding. Okay, fine. So let the ggplot2 be till here till this point, and one thing that is important is basically using the reference document that it has. Now let's get back to the documentation. I have placed the URL in the code and in the chat as well. Now if you want to plot any graph, irrespective of how the variable is and whatever, you come to this site, you come to this website and scroll down. Now let's take one example here. If I want to plot something like this, so they have a full code here what you want to do. Okay, so basically here if you see, as I said, it totally works on the concept of layer. Okay, and what we did so far, in a single line we used to write a code. Okay, so we used to write a code like this, and it used to work good for us. We got a good graph. But in this ggplot2 you might get something of which might look initially different to you. What it will do is, basically it works in a layering concept, as I said you. So they'll create a separate layer of this, they'll keep it in G. There's nothing special about it, but just the way of writing. So I am creating a first layer, second layer, and storing it in G. Okay, and I'm running it. Now when I want to plot the graph, so what I'll do is G plus, and then my plotting, whatever graph I want to plot. So this is no difference from what we did earlier. So it becomes G. That means the entire first and second layer, and your type of graph you want to plot. Okay, G plus geom point. So it gives you the same graph. Guys, is it clear? Or do you have any confusion in this? Because when you refer to the document, which is important, you'll get something like this. So whenever you see a graph, you have the entire code. You just need to replace your data with whatever you want to plot, data and the variable, and you have the code ready. We don't need to think about code and like that. Okay, so if you want to fill with a color, so there's a variable called fill is equal to drb, you do that. Okay, if you want to change the position, so see here there's a code position is equal to position stack, reverse is equal to true. Okay, so let's try and check this in our system. So we plotted bar graph here, right? We plotted a bar graph here. So let's take this as an example. Let's make this as G. This is my G. Fine. I want to do a bar graph on aesthetic driver position. Where is my reverse position? Okay, so G plus geom bar. In geom bar, I want aesthetic filler is equal to driver, position is equal to reverse. Okay, so I got the output. So what I did is, basically this was my requirement. I just, and the other requirement, the fancy thing, I just copied it from the code from the portal forum, and I used it like directly, just changing my variables. So it is the document is that good. You don't need to think about the codes and learning each and every code. No, that does not work in that way. It is very simple. Now the important aspect is here. So all the important argument that you'll be using have a proper definition. What is mapping? What is data? Position, width. So position we have used. So okay, then width, breadth, NA. So you just need to go through it just once, and then you are good to use this document. Like this is completely in like I mean like relevant when you are starting new. So when you are starting, so I'll suggest you go to the first page. Here you have like n number of examples. You have cheat sheets. Okay, what you want to make, you have everything here. Okay, so I guess ggplot2 will not be a difficult task for you going ahead. So if you have anything as such in particular, please let me know. I'll definitely would like to address those. Guys, anything else that you want
No,
to?
sir.
Okay, so I'll share the slides. Fine. Now,
Sir, one question.
yeah, yeah.
Can you please explain on that G plot which we are plotting three aspects or three? Uh,
Three layer.
Sir, I'm Snehashish. Sir,
Yes, yes.
sir, can you please explain the, on which G plot on which we are plotting three aspects together? I mean, can you explain that once again?
Yeah, yeah. So basically, what happened? So let's say example here. So ggplot. Okay, I'm taking a data is equal to mpg, and aesthetic is x is your d displays. What is dspy? Disp l. Okay, and your y is let's say hw hwy. Okay, and I'm trying to plot a I'm trying to plot a point chart, geom point. So this is how my graph looks like. Okay, so on top of this, sorry guys. So on top of this, if I want to see the trend, or if I want to see any one more chart on this, so this is your first layer. This is your second layer. Okay, now let's keep this in a variable called g. Okay, let's save it, run it. And now if I want to plot third layer, so g plus my third layer, let's say I want to plot a line. Now my third layer will be geom ab line, and run it. So on top of this, where is the line? Did I run this? Okay, so let's move this. Yeah, so why it was not here? It should be the same thing, right? Yeah. So when I what I did is basically I created this my normal graph that we saw, and then I realized I also want to see the trend. I want to see the line. Okay, and then I saved the first and second layer, third layer in my G, and in the fourth layer I added geom line. Okay, so this is what I did. Yes, is it clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, yeah, what I was, yeah. So let's just take a break of 5 minutes. Let me just deep lab. So we'll just try to cover that at least today. Okay. So here I have the code. So basically, let me copy this. Yeah. So here basically we have seen all the grammars. So what we are left with is group by. Okay. So in group by means aggregate. So I was trying to show this same in Excel that day. Yeah. So is the Excel sheet visible to you all?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So let me copy one small sample data so that I can explain you here itself. Guys, yeah. So let's leave this and take.
Hello, sorry. कैसे बढ़िया?
So let's say I take a few example. Bhaskar, I take Rishav, I take Somili. Okay, these three are students, and then we have respective, let's say, salary. Okay, and you have something called age. Okay, now there can be, let's say, I'll take few more example like Ankita. So there, let's say this is in the range of 21, 22, 20, again 21 and 22. And there is some salary, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, and $25,000. Okay. Now, so basically, this is a, you can assume this as a very regular and a real-time example. You'll come across this every time you start working with the data. Okay. Then we'll go back to the R as well. We'll see in R. Now, the group by, why it is important is basically it will help you to aggregate the data. So aggregation is important. Okay, and it is also termed as sometime in industry as roll up, aggregation or roll up. So what does it mean is basically you have the real raw data, you roll it up to the one level above it. So what do you mean by that? So basically you have transactional, this is a transactional data. Okay, if I ask you roll your data up on age, okay, so what does it mean? I will have distinct ages. So I'll have 21 and 22. These are my two distinct ages. Okay, now since I've rolled up the data age, I have from 4, I have made my date from 4 rows, I have made it to 2 rows, right? Now if I have made it to 2 rows, so I should have salary that resembles my previous data. There should not be any changes on the data behavior. So this aggregation, so here the aggregation falls. So in this aggregate, so what you can have is sum, maximum, minimum, average. Okay, these 4 are the basic aggregation that you do on your data set when you roll up, when you group by. Okay, so just remember this for example now, this 4. and 90% of the cases you'll come across this. So at max, what you'll come is sometime count. Okay, count of rows. So now we'll see each of these 5 example here. Salary. This is your sum. Salary max. Salary minimum. Salary, and this will be a simple count. Now, so when I talk about aggregation on sum, so what do I mean? I mean sum of this and this. Guys, does it make sense? And when I talk about aggregation of 22, I mean sum of all my rows which has a value of 22. So check here if this makes sense. So what is this? This is basically 21. So all the rows which has a numerical value of like numerical salary and that is tied up with 21 each will get summed up. Okay, and in second case, that since the row is 22, so it will pull all the rows which is having 22 in salary. It will sum up. Guys, is it clear? This two value? Quick yes and no.
Yes, sir.
Okay, now tell me if it's clear. What will be the salary max for 21 and 22?
30,000 for age 21 and 25,000 for age 22.
25,000 for age 22. What will be the minimum?
10,000 for 21 and 20,000 for 22.
Guys, check if it is going along with your understanding or not. Now, if I talk about count, so what does it mean?
Number of people who has the age 21.
Yeah. So when I talk about age 21, so it will give me 2 and 2.
2.
Yeah. So if you understand this, so at least in R and SQL, you will have no issues with the group by. Okay, this is the entire group by concept, right? Now let's go back to our data here. Okay, so this is we are talking about normal base package aggregate, which is very efficient and we use it a lot. Now in empty cars, we see this is my empty car data. In empty cars, we have a lot of categorical. Let's say this carb or gear is my category. Okay, if I want to know how many what is the total number of cylinders, sum of total number of cylinders for each gear, so how will I do it? So basically I want to aggregate and my data is empty car. Let me empty cars. Okay, and I want the aggregation of on what column. Okay, so let's say I want the sum of cylinder. Okay, for each gear, so sum of cylinder. And in by you write the list that you want to aggregate. So basically here I want to aggregate on cylinder, and I want to see the value by gear, right? So here will be empty car dollar gear. Okay, and what I want to see, what aggregation? We saw 5 aggregation, some mean, max, average, and count. So let's say we go for sum, okay, and run it. So what you see here, first of all, in group 1, you saw your gear. It is grouping on gear. So you have 3, 4, 5 distinct gears as a value, and the sum of cylindrical value is 1, 12, 56, and 30. So this is, if you want, I can show the same output in Excel as well, if I, but that will take time. Yeah, guys, is it clear? Aggregation, how are we aggregating? So let's rephrase the code. Aggregate is a function. The value which you want to aggregate, okay, So to understand, I want to sum this cylinder, okay, by gear. That means I want to, gear wise, I want to sum cylinder. This is how you can understand. Okay, so here you can put any aggregate value. You can put mean if you want. Okay, if you want, you can try with average. A V G. I don't think average is A V E. Average does not exist. You have mean here. Okay, so you can try with mean. You can try with max. Okay, you can try with mean. Okay, and you'll get it like the same way. This is how we use aggregate a lot. Now the assignment that you'll get, deep learning assignment. So in those assignments you will find 2-3 questions which will be on aggregate. So you can use this code as it is. So I'll copy this and I'll send it to you. So I guess we are good for today.